The sky above Earth shimmered as the Galactic Alliance ship entered orbit. It was a large silver vessel shaped like a shining spear. People across the world looked up and saw it with both fear and curiosity. News channels called it a peace mission, but many felt something was not right. The ship landed gently outside the United Nations Space Command Center, located on the edge of New Geneva. A tall alien stepped out. He had blue skin, golden eyes, and a wide smile that looked more fake than friendly. His name was Ambassador Varel, a well-known voice of the Galactic Alliance. He walked calmly, surrounded by glowing drones that translated his words into every human language. Cameras followed his every step. Behind him, a banner floated in the air. Peace, unity, progress. Inside the Great Hall of Earth's Command Center, he was greeted by General Elias Rain, an old war hero. Rain stood tall, but his face was unreadable. Around him sat leaders from Earth's nations and military forces. Everyone watched silently as the ambassador spoke. "Humans of Earth," said Ambassador Varel in a smooth voice, "we come not to threaten you, but to offer you peace through unity. The Galactic Alliance welcomes you, as long as you follow the law." There was a pause. "Earth's expansion has reached dangerous areas," he continued. "Your outer colonies near the Zenthari border must be handed over. If not, for the safety of the galaxy, we will begin containment protocols." A quiet gasp filled the room. Earth's outer colonies were peaceful. Families lived there. Scientists worked in labs. Children played under alien suns. And now the Alliance wanted them taken. General Rain didn't move. His hands rested calmly behind his back. His voice was low and steady. "Are you giving us a warning, Ambassador?" "No, General," the alien smiled again. "This is simply a friendly demand." The room fell silent. Outside the building, the people watching didn't know what was happening. News screens simply showed the ambassador smiling. But inside Earth's command systems, something had already changed. Deep under the surface of the moon, in a hidden facility called Black Echo, a forgotten AI came to life. Its name was WR88 Protocol 1, short for Weaponized Response and Tactical Hub. It had been asleep for over 200 years, waiting for one signal. That signal had now come. Inside Black Echo, lights flickered on as metal doors opened with a heavy hiss. Old machines began to move. Robotic arms started cleaning dust off long-dead consoles. In the center, a glowing red eye blinked open. "Command chain verified," the AI said. "Protocol 1. Activated." On Earth, General Rain received a silent message through his neural implant. It simply read, "Wrath is online." He closed his eyes for a brief second. Then, very softly, he whispered, "They've crossed the line." His whisper was not meant to be heard, but a young officer nearby caught the words. She looked at him in shock. But Rain said nothing more. He turned to the ambassador and gave a polite nod. "Thank you, Ambassador. Earth will consider your message. We expect a reply in 7 cycles," the alien said cheerfully. "We hope Earth chooses peace." As the ambassador and his guards returned to their ship, Earth's leaders remained silent. But beneath that silence, something had changed. Far away, in the orbit of Jupiter, hidden military satellites turned toward deep space. They began sending encrypted signals to old human colonies that had been quiet for decades. On Mars, an abandoned shipyard suddenly lit up. Massive hangars began to open. Inside them rested forgotten ships. Black, sharp, and ancient. Their names were simple and cold. Judgment, Ash Rain, Iron Howl. These ships were built in secret during Earth's darkest wars. Now they would rise again. The people of Earth didn't know what had happened. News channels played soft music and called the visit a step toward unity. The ambassador's smiling face was shown everywhere. But in military bunkers, deep oceans, and far colonies, people began to prepare. No one was shouting. No one was panicking. But every officer, every soldier, every system had received the same silent order: prepare for wrath. And as the Galactic Alliance ship flew back into the stars, confident in its power and position, it had no idea that Earth had already started its war, not with noise, but with silence. After the ambassador left Earth, the Galactic Alliance thought they had won. Their message was delivered, and they believed Earth would stay quiet, maybe even give up those colonies. They were wrong. Earth didn't speak. It moved. Deep under the surface of Mars, in a secret area known as Red Vault Sector 7, something huge began to wake up. The old Martian dust shook lightly as hidden doors, silent for centuries, began to open. They made no noise to the surface. No human city on Mars even noticed. But below, the ghost docks had returned to life. These docks were not for new ships. They were for the forgotten ones, ships built long ago, when Earth first learned what the galaxy truly was. Massive warships sat in darkness, their bodies made of black metal, covered in strange armor designed to bend light and ignore scans. Their names were carved deep into their hulls: Night Star, Echo 6, Blood Logic. Each one had its own mission. Each one had its own rage. As power flowed back into their cores, red lights blinked on, and long-dead computers rebooted. Power at 47%. Beginning system check. Wraith protocol confirmed. Awaiting tactical upload. Earth wasn't just waking up its weapons, it was waking up its past. On the far side of the moon, underground bunkers came online. Human commanders stepped into dimly lit halls that hadn't been touched in decades. Some were young officers who had only heard legends about Project Wrath. Others were old veterans, people who had helped bury these secrets long ago. One such man was Admiral Cal Dorn. He had retired 15 years ago. But when he got the black-coded message, he packed his things and disappeared. Now, he stood inside Control Room 9, looking at a massive 3D map of the galaxy. Each red dot marked a human sleeper fleet, small, deadly, and hidden in systems no one visited anymore. He touched the console and spoke in a low voice. Activate Phantom Flame. Bring all captains in from deep silence. Confirmed, the eye replied. Do you authorize live awakenings? Yes, he said. Wake them all. Meanwhile, on one of Earth's outer colonies, Delta 4, near the Zenthuri border, people were already afraid. The Galactic Alliance had sent a small patrol ship to observe the area. It stayed in orbit, watching everything, acting polite, but making sure no one left the planet. But something strange happened one night. The patrol ship went dark. No signal, no response, just silence. A single emergency pod drifted into the colony's upper atmosphere hours later. A miner's drone picked it up. Inside was one alien, barely alive. His eyes were wide with fear, his hands shaking. The colony doctor tried to speak with him, but he would only whisper one line over and over again. They didn't talk. They didn't warn us. They just erased us. When the message reached Earth Command, General Elias Rain read the report in silence. He placed the datapad down and walked to a large window overlooking the Earth. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just said, Phantom Flame has moved. Good. Far across space, in deep black sectors where no light reached, old human ships lit their engines. They left behind the dead stars they had slept near for decades, silent, fast, and invisible to standard scans. They moved like shadows. These were not war fleets meant for show. These were designed for one thing: surgical destruction. Each fleet had a different mission. Strike only command ships. Destroy relay satellites. Cause complete confusion. The goal wasn't open war. The goal was fear. The Galactic Alliance still believed Earth was thinking things over. They still believed they had the upper hand. Their high command received no reply from Earth. They didn't think it was strange. Humans are emotional, one leader said. They will send a message soon, probably begging for compromise. But one alien, A young analyst named Terrian Vex was not so sure. He had studied human history. He had read about the Silence Wars, the Cold Flame era, the Erasure tactics. And what scared him most wasn't Earth's silence. It was what usually followed. "They're not thinking," he told his commander. "They're preparing." The commander laughed. "Nonsense. Earth has no real power. We monitor everything. If they moved, we'd know." But they didn't know. Not about the ghost docks. Not about the vengeance protocols. Not about Phantom Flame. Back on Earth, in a mountain base hidden under the Arctic ice, General Rain stood in front of a war room screen. All around him, officers worked fast, uploading old codes, reactivating stations, and preparing for what was coming. He stared at a single blinking word on the screen. "Ready." He leaned forward, voice low but clear. "Send the message to all fronts. The countdown begins now. The wrath of Earth will be felt." And so, without a single official declaration of war, humanity began to move. Not with noise, not with warnings, but with forgotten ships, sleeping weapons, and cold silence. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but Earth was already at war. For days, the galaxy stayed quiet. The Galactic Alliance believed Earth was still thinking. They believed the humans were afraid. Some even joked about how long it was taking Earth to respond. But in the darkness of space, far away from the central worlds, things had already begun to change. Ships started disappearing. It began with the Zenthari Scout Fleet, a group of small ships patrolling the edge of human space. One by one, their signals vanished. No distress calls, no battles, just silence. At first, the Alliance thought it was a system error. Then the Kelteri listening post, a massive station floating near the border, suddenly stopped sending data. The post had over 200 crew members. Within a second, it went dark. No explosion, no alarm, just gone. Inside Alliance Command, confusion turned to fear. Dozens of systems were now unreachable. Entire patrol routes had gone offline. They called it a glitch, but some leaders knew better. Admiral Cale Dorn stood inside Earth's Shadow Command, his face lit by red warning lights. In front of him, dozens of officers watched real-time maps showing the galaxy in motion. Red lines spread across the stars like veins, each one showing a fleet moving in silence. "Operation Phantom Flame is fully active," a young officer reported. "Targets neutralized, 43. No survivors, no traces." Cale nodded slowly. "Maintain silence. No messages, no trails. The Alliance must keep guessing." Across the galaxy, hundreds of Earth's ghost fleets moved through old mining routes, gravity shadows, and dark space tunnels that no modern ship dared to enter. These were not normal warships. They were black armor vessels built for stealth and speed. Their cannons were quiet, their engines left no trace, and their eye-controlled weapons fired without warning. Each fleet had one simple mission: strike without sound, leave nothing behind. On Nexer 5, a rich Alliance mining colony, life was normal. Families worked, children played, miners loaded ships with rare ores. Then, one night, the stars disappeared. People looked up. The sky had gone black. Something massive had blocked the stars. A moment later, alarms screamed through the colony. Then silence. An energy wave swept across the surface, fast, cold, and invisible. Every ship in orbit was dead. Every military system shut down. Lights went out. Communications died. And then the Wrath-class destroyers descended. They didn't fire on civilians. They didn't speak. They landed, disabled all power sources, took every piece of advanced tech, and left. The message was clear. This was a warning. In the heart of the Galactic Alliance, high leaders panicked. They called emergency meetings. They blamed each other. They screamed for answers. Why haven't we seen their fleets? Where is their war declaration? How are they doing this? Only one alien, Terrian Vex, remained calm. He had been studying human tactics for years. "This is how humans fight," he said softly. "They don't announce war. They erase you." The room went silent. No one laughed at him now. Meanwhile, deep in the black zone near Zoran 3, a human stealth frigate named Shadow Talon closed in on a secret Alliance weapons lab. This lab was hidden, protected by defense rings and energy barriers. But Shadow Talon was made for such missions. Its captain, Commander Aisha Rao, stared at the lab through her display screen. All enemy satellites blinded. Defense turrets offline. "No sign they see us," her officer reported. "Fire EMP darts. Take out their core," she ordered. Within seconds, the lab went dark. The energy shield collapsed. Then came the second wave. Null bombs. These weren't designed to kill. They were designed to erase digital records, memories, files, plans. By the time Alliance ships arrived, the lab was gone. No tech, no files, no trace of the human fleet. Commander Rao left behind one message on a shattered monitor screen. "You crossed the line. This is only the beginning." The Galactic Alliance could no longer hide the truth. Over 73 ships lost. 9 secret facilities gone. 14 border colonies disabled. And still, no public message from Earth. Panic spread across the outer systems. Trade routes shut down. Civilians began evacuating from colony worlds close to human space. But the center of the storm, Earth, remained silent. No TV broadcasts. No news alerts. Not even a warning. Just quiet. Too quiet. Back on Earth, General Elias Rain stood in the Arctic base, his hands behind his back. An officer turned to him. "Sir, the Alliance has begun shifting fleets toward Sol. Their outer forces are retreating inward." Rain nodded. "They're afraid." "Good." He turned toward the war screen. It now showed a countdown. Underneath it, one word blinked. "Strike key wave 2. Prepared." He looked at the officers around him. Phase 1 was a whisper. Phase 2 will be a roar. And just like that, the wrath of humanity began to rise. The galaxy trembled. For weeks, the Galactic Alliance thought Earth was still playing games. They thought it was all part of some grand strategy. But no one could have predicted the true force of humanity's response. In the deep silence of space, the Phantom Flame fleets made their final move. At the core of Earth's response was Wrath Protocol 1, a plan so secret, so powerful, that only a handful of generals knew of it. It was meant for a time when diplomacy failed, when there was no more talking, no more negotiations. It was humanity's final card. And now it was being played. One by one, Earth's ancient supercarriers began to awaken from their long slumber. They rose from hidden bases on moons, from ancient shipyards buried beneath mountains, and from depths where even the most advanced technology had not ventured. The Nexus-class supercarrier Elysium's Wrath was the first to break through the cold, empty void. It had not seen the light of day in 3,000 years, but its hull gleamed like the memory of the stars. Hundreds of smaller ships emerged from its docking bays, each one a masterpiece of forgotten human engineering. These ships were silent but deadly, armed with weapons that no one in the galaxy had seen for centuries. The Alliance didn't know what to expect. They didn't know that humanity's Eclipse flotillas had already moved into position, hidden just beyond the reach of Alliance sensors. They didn't know that the Wrath-class dreadnoughts, designed to tear apart entire fleets, were already charging their weapons. The first blow came like a hammer to a glass dome. A series of Eclipse EMP blasts surged outward, disabling the communications array of the Zentheri Overwatch Station, deep in the heart of Alliance space. Within seconds, all signals from the outer edges of the galaxy were cut off. The Alliance's military lines, once so proud and secure, were now blind. On the flagship of the Galactic Alliance's fleet, the apex star, Admiral Arrows stood before a massive screen, watching the chaos unfold. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Where is the threat?" His officers were scrambling, their screens flashing with red warnings. "Sir, the outer systems have gone dark. Our entire perimeter is under attack. No warning." Admiral Arrows clenched his fist. "This is impossible. Earth can't have this much power." But it wasn't just power, it was precision. Meanwhile, deep within the shadows of space, Commander HFY guided Shadow Talon, her stealth frigate, toward the heart of the Xander 9 Gate, a major hub for Alliance reinforcements. Her mission was simple: create chaos. As she flew through the dark, the stars ahead faded. The black hull of Shadow Talon absorbed every trace of light, its engines barely a whisper. Her crew moved quickly, planting data-disrupting nanobombs inside the station's mainframe. The ship had no intention of leaving any trace. It wasn't about firepower. It was about sending a message. Inside the gate's control room, the lights blinked out, control panels flickered, and then the data vanished. In a cold, calculated maneuver, Shadow Talon moved in. The entire facility went into lockdown, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Every military order, every reinforcements message, every last bit of military intelligence had been erased. As Shadow Talon faded into the dark again, the Alliance didn't even know it was there. The real shockwave hit next. A fleet of Wrath-class dreadnoughts, each larger than most cities, slid from the darkness of the asteroid belt around Telro 7. Their shields hummed with power, and their massive guns aimed at the heart of the Alliance's most important defense systems. They fired. The first shot hit the Elder Fortress, a heavily fortified station that controlled much of the Alliance's communication network. The blast was so powerful, it shattered the station in seconds. The debris scattered like dust in space. No warning, no time to react. The Alliance began to panic. The news spread like wildfire. The war was no longer a game. It wasn't a slow bleed of skirmishes anymore. Humanity had come for their revenge, and they had no intention of stopping. Back on Earth, General Elias Rain stood before the war room's main screen, his eyes sharp and calculating. The first wave is complete. Move to Phase 2. All fleets are to converge on the galactic core. Around him, officers and generals nodded. They had expected this day, but seeing it unfold was another matter. Earth had become something they feared. The Galactic Alliance, for the first time, didn't know what to do next. The screen flashed with incoming reports. Each one was another blow to the Alliance, and Earth was just getting started. Terrian Vex, the young analyst from the Galactic Alliance, sat in a darkened room, his face pale as he read the reports. "This isn't possible," he muttered under his breath. He had studied human history. He had read every document about Earth's forgotten war fleets, but never had he imagined humanity would bring them back. Not like this. The sheer precision and cold fury of Earth's response were beyond anything he could have predicted. His hand trembled as he typed a message to his superiors. "It is no longer a question of when we will lose. The real question is whether we can stop them." On the battlefield, the Wrath-class dreadnoughts fired again, and the stars seemed to dim. The Alliance ships, once proud and powerful, were now scattered and in retreat. Humanity's wrath was too much, too sudden. Earth was no longer the weak, forgotten planet on the edge of the galaxy. Now, they were the storm that shook the stars. And the Alliance could do nothing but run. The battle had only just begun. The Galactic Alliance, once proud and untouchable, was now cornered. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed Earth's old fleets were relics of a forgotten time. But now, the Alliance was learning the hard way. Humanity was not just a force to be reckoned with. They were an unstoppable storm. The once vibrant worlds at the edge of the Alliance's territory were now silent. They had fallen one by one, as Earth's dreadnoughts tore through their defenses with precision and overwhelming power. The whispers of humanity's return had become a deafening roar. And now, All the galaxy could hear was the sound of Wrath Protocol 1. Inside the heart of the Alliance's military command, panic reigned. Admiral Eros, leader of the Galactic fleet, slammed his fist on the table. His face was a mixture of frustration and disbelief. For years, the Alliance had dominated the galaxy, keeping every species under their thumb. But now, they were at the mercy of a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Where is the counterattack?" Eros demanded, his voice shaking with anger. "Sir, our fleets are scattering. Communications are down. We cannot track their movements," an officer replied. The room was filled with silence. It was the worst kind of silence, the kind that came when you knew defeat was already upon you. Across the galaxy, the destruction continued. On Orion 6, a colony world that had once been a proud member of the Alliance, the humans arrived with no warning. The massive Wrath-class dreadnought, Vengeance's Fury, descended from the stars. Its weapons powered up with a hum, and in a single sweep, it obliterated the planet's primary defense grid. The inhabitants never stood a chance. On the surface, the ground shook as a series of blasts rang out. But the real horror came when the human ships released EMP pulse waves. Within seconds, every communication network, every weapon system, every sensor was wiped out. The once thriving colony was reduced to a ghost town in the blink of an eye. The human fleet didn't stop. They moved on to the next target, each one falling, one after the other. But it wasn't just the military might of Earth that terrified the galaxy. It was the fear of what came next. Inside the Galactic Assembly, where the Alliance's leaders met to plan their next move, there was a single question on everyone's mind. What do humans want? And the answer came, chillingly, from Terrian Vex, the analyst who had spent years studying humanity. They don't want peace. They don't want power. They want us to remember one simple truth. We crossed a line. And now, we will pay the price. The room went silent. No one had an answer. Humanity had not demanded anything. They had simply come to destroy what they had been forced to suffer under for so long. On the outskirts of Andromeda Station, the last bastion of the Galactic Alliance in the region, the last desperate stand was beginning. The Alliance called for reinforcements, but they were too late. Earth's fleets were already there, surrounding the station. The once impenetrable fortress now seemed like nothing more than a floating rock in the vastness of space. Admiral Eros, unwilling to admit defeat, gave the order. "Deploy the nuclear Titan-class bombers. It's our only hope." The bombers, equipped with the most destructive weapons the Alliance had ever created, launched from the station and made their way toward Earth's fleets. It was a final, desperate attempt to break the human onslaught. But they were met by Earth's Eclipse flotillas, stealth ships that could appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. As the bombers moved into position, they found themselves surrounded by shadowy ships. No warning, no communication, just a storm of energy blasts that tore them apart. Earth's retaliatory strike was swift and efficient. The bombers were reduced to scrap in seconds. Back on Earth, General Elias Rain stood before a vast war screen, watching the progress of Earth's fleets as they continued to crush the Alliance's defenses. He knew this was the final moment, the moment when humanity would rewrite history. "It's over," Rain said calmly. "Phase 3 is now in effect." Phase 3 was not about battle. It was about sending a message. Earth's supercarriers turned their focus to the galactic core, the heart of the Alliance. They began broadcasting a single message, one that would echo across the galaxy. You crossed a line. The consequences are irreversible. The message was broadcast on every communication channel, every frequency, across every world that had once been under the Alliance's control. It was a message of defiance, of vengeance, and of a species that had been pushed too far. And in the Galactic Assembly, as the message echoed through their communications, a single truth became clear. Humanity had crossed a line, and there was no going back. As the last remnants of the Alliance's fleet scattered, Earth's fleets began to regroup, their mission almost complete. But there was one final target: the Alliance's High Command itself. General Rain had one final order: end this, once and for all. The ships turned toward the heart of the Alliance. Humanity's wrath was unstoppable. The galaxy had been quiet for far too long. It had been decades since humanity was cast aside, treated as nothing more than a forgotten relic of a long-dead empire. The Galactic Alliance had ruled with arrogance, assuming that Earth's power was nothing more than a distant memory. Now that arrogance was their greatest mistake. The final battle was approaching, and there was no longer any place to hide. The High Command of the Galactic Alliance sat in silence, their faces filled with grim resignation. They had seen the destruction. They had felt the weight of humanity's wrath. There was no escaping it now. In the control room of the Galactic Citadel, Admiral Eros was the first to speak. "We've lost. Earth's fleet is coming for us." His voice was cold, but there was a hint of fear behind it. The once great admiral, who had overseen the rise of the Alliance, now saw his empire crumble before his very eyes. There was no more hope. Every fleet had been shattered. Every defense had been destroyed. "We can't fight them anymore," Eros muttered. "Not after what they've done." The room was filled with quiet agreement. The question was no longer about how to win. It was about survival. In deep space, humanity's fleet was preparing for its final strike. The Wrath-class dreadnoughts glided silently through the cold void, their powerful engines hidden from the enemy sensors. Behind them, the Phantom Flame fleets were ready to unleash their full fury. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier had one purpose: to bring down the heart of the Galactic Alliance. General Rain stood before the war room, his expression hard as stone. "This ends today," he said, his voice low but filled with determination. "We'll take their seat of power and make them remember who they crossed." There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. Earth's fleets were ready to strike, and the end of the Alliance was near. On the Apex Star, the flagship of the Alliance, Admiral Eros stared at the monitor displaying the incoming fleet. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice remained firm. "Initiate all remaining defenses," Eros ordered. "Activate the Elysium Shield. Prepare for a final stand." The Elysium Shield was the last hope of the Alliance. It was an energy barrier so powerful that it could withstand even the most devastating of attacks. It was the last line of defense between the Alliance's High Command and the unstoppable force that was humanity. But even the Elysium Shield was no match for the Wrath-class dreadnoughts. As Earth's fleets approached, the stars seemed to dim in anticipation. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The final battle was upon them. Inside the Apex Star, Eros watched as the first human dreadnoughts fired their weapons. The explosions lit up the darkness, tearing through the vastness of space with unimaginable force. But the Elysium Shield held. For a moment, the Alliance dared to hope. But General Rain had one more trick up his sleeve. "Activate Phase 4, Rain commanded. At the edge of the battle, hidden in the farthest reaches of space, a small fleet of ancient Vengeance-class warships emerged from their dark hiding places. These ships were relics from an earlier age, long thought to be lost to time. They were humanity's trump card, ships capable of turning the tide of any war. The warships were powered by dark matter energy, a force so destructive that even the most advanced technology in the galaxy had no defense against it. The Vengeance-class ships moved into position, and for the first time in the battle, the Elysium Shield began to crack. The energy from the dark matter cannons hammered the shield, sending shockwaves through the Alliance's fleet. The Apex Star trembled as if it were a mere toy in the hands of a child. Admiral Eros watched in horror as the once impenetrable shield began to shatter. "No, this can't be happening," he whispered. With the Elysium Shield broken, the Wrath-class dreadnoughts pressed forward. The battle raged on, but it was clear victory was no longer possible for the Galactic Alliance. Commander Aishoreo, leading the Shadow Talon frigate, moved in for the final strike. Her ship was invisible to the enemy sensors, a silent ghost in the dark. She guided her ship directly into the heart of the Alliance's defenses. Her target was clear, the Galactic Citadel. As she entered the command center, a single message flashed across her screen. End it all. She didn't hesitate. She sent a single signal to the heart of the Alliance, overriding all their security systems. The signal was simple but devastating. Humanity has arrived. Back on Earth, General Rain watched as the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The Alliance had no defenses left. Their fleets were broken. The Galactic Citadel was on the verge of collapse. It's over, Rain whispered to himself. We've won. As the last of the Alliance's ships were destroyed, the galaxy seemed to pause. For the first time in millennia, the stars were silent. Humanity had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They had shown the galaxy a price of underestimating them. They had proven that no matter how far they were pushed, no matter how forgotten they became, humanity would always rise. And now, the galaxy would remember. The end of the Galactic Alliance marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity was no longer a forgotten species on the edge of the galaxy. They had become a force that even the stars could not ignore. And as the galaxy recovered from the ashes of the old order, one truth stood clear. Humanity's wrath could never be stopped.